Another year passes, and it's out with the old and in with the new. You can't see it right now, but I am going through a little bit of a redesign again, making a VTuber model for streaming purposes and a GIF animation model for review purposes. But I'm not the only one going through changes in 2026, as last year Nintendo finally released the Switch 2. And people are very skeptical on the brand new console. Some people say Nintendo is going downhill. I'd say it's just announcing it the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, I did get one for both my birthday and Christmas, but instead of looking at what the Switch 2 has to offer, I think it's also important to also look back on the Nintendo Switch and the best video games that we got out of this console. Now it's time for me to talk about the 13 best, more specifically, my favorite Nintendo Switch games. Now if you haven't checked out my video on my favorite N64 games, one, I should recommend checking that out, because I do have some very surprising titles on there, but there will also be some rules, so it's always not going to be oversaturated with specific titles. One, I will be choosing one video game per franchise, with the only exception being spin-offs being their own separate title. You'll understand what I mean once we talk about the first game later on. There will be no remakes or remasters, or ports of other games, so Wii U games are not going to even make it on this list to begin with, so that will be excluding games like Mario 3D World, Bayonetta 2, Pikmin 3, and sadly Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, with another one of those special exceptions. And as an added bonus rule, just so this title's not oversaturated with Nintendo games, because there's going to be a lot of them, we'll also be choosing games that also released exclusively for the Nintendo Switch for a time, and eventually was available on other platforms. As Nintendo was really indie friendly during this time, as some games were actually Switch launch exclusives for a time, until they were available on other consoles. But other than that, everything is fair game. But before we talk about my top 13, I'm going to give you guys 10 honorable mentions instead of a lucky 7. Starting with Pokemon. I'm just going to put Pokemon here because I really know how this era of Pokemon is very divisive, but there are generally a lot of things I did and did not like about the new generations of Pokemon. Fire Emblem Three Houses. As much as I did enjoy Three Houses, I've only played through a good amount of it that I wouldn't really call it the best of my list. But if you still like the game, you'll still enjoy it. Princess Peach Showtime. A Princess Peach game in 2020 is still surprising to me, and honestly, I just think it's a really fun time. Splatoon 2. I haven't played Splatoon 3, but I did enjoy a bit of Splatoon, but truth be told, I'm not really an online game kind of guy. I ironically enough enjoyed Splatoon for the single player mode. Mario plus Rabbids. I've played the first one, I haven't played Sparks of Hope yet, but I still think they're great strategy games, and are definitely a high recommendation, especially with the sequel having Rayman as DLC. Bakudo. This was originally a Switch exclusive for their time, but is now also available on multiple consoles, including Steam. I've only played the demo, but I still thought it was a really great platformer. Meo the Smiling Man, the one of many Nintendo franchises to come back on the Nintendo Switch, that I was very shocked and really enjoyed the demo of. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild didn't make the list because it was originally made for the Wii U, and I decided to exclude Tears of the Kingdom from this list because I felt like it was a cop-out. It's still a phenomenal game, and you should still play it for yourself. I should also mention games that get Switch 2 versions will be included in this list because I don't know whether or not these games will eventually get a Switch 2 remake as well. Mario & Luigi Brothership. I did an entire playthrough of this on my channel, I really enjoyed it, and it was the best $20 I ever spent. Forget the haters, this game is amazing. And lastly, ARMS. Sorry Talking Sock, I couldn't put this in my best of lists, but I still think it's a phenomenal game with really great characters, and I too wish they would make a sequel or even a Switch 2 variant. Now, with all that out of the way, it's time to officially start the countdown, starting with my lucky number, 13. And we're starting with a controversial opinion. I actually like Mario Tennis Aces. Before the comments get mad at me for putting this as one of the best Mario games, it technically is not. It is one of the best Mario sports games. This is going to be one of those spin-off titles that are separate from their mainline titles. And I think Mario Tennis Aces is one of the best sports Mario games ever to come out. And considering it had to go up against Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which was already on the Wii U, Mario Strikers, which was unfortunately the biggest disappointment, especially for the Mario Striker fans, and Mario Golf, which, not gonna lie, I generally find golf incredibly boring. Not even Mario can save it. But what makes Mario Tennis Aces so enjoyable is the tennis-based mechanics, as well as its unique special traits, and the unique racket mechanic, which makes Mario Tennis Aces feel like a strategic fighting game in a way. And you just gotta give it mad respect, especially considering the last Mario Tennis in the game was basically almost the death of the series. And we're getting a brand new title in the series, and I'm also very excited for. At number 12, we've got Astral Chain. I have actually played some of this game, but I haven't played all of it. So I decided to play a little bit on my free time to see if the game actually holds up as well as people say it does, and yeah, it is really good. And it's a shame that Platinum is no longer a part of this project, but hey, let's see what Nintendo has in store if they ever plan to make an Astral Chain 2. And if you guys want me to stream the game from beginning to end, let me know in the comments. Now, for those who don't know, I'm a pretty big fan of Super Monkey Ball, and the fact that the series got a major resurgence on the Nintendo Switch, I'm happy to say Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble really brings me back to loving the original series and expanding on it in the best way possible. I was skeptical at first of II's new redesign, but it definitely feels charming and cute, and it also brought back a lot of fan favorite characters, and it also introduced a great new monkey character. The game is still as difficult as ever, so obviously you're not expecting me to actually fully complete this game, but the chaos, the puzzles, and the multiplayer are definitely worth it in my personal opinion. You pick Wario! More specifically, WarioWare Get Together. The first time in the WarioWare series, in a mainline story mode to be precise, has Wario and his friends from Diamond City finally playable in the craziest and most entertaining way to play microgames, featuring all your fan favorites and very ingenious ways of integrating all the different mechanics into one way or another. Though a lot of characters are overpowered, there are also some characters that are just insanely bad. Also, if anyone can do it, I highly recommend doing a challenge where you can beat WarioWare Get Together with only 9 volts. He is the worst character, and I'd love to see if anyone can try to succeed. Truth be told, I'm not the biggest Metroid fan. First time I ever played Metroid was Metroid Prime on the GameCube. And then when Metroid Dread was announced, a thought to be cancelled Metroid 5 game that finally released, I decided to marathon almost all the original Metroid Timeline games, which include the original NES version, because I didn't know Zero Mission existed, Samus Return on my free time because I don't have game capture on a 3DS, Super Metroid, which I don't think was as good as people say, and Fusion, which honestly, I actually really liked. And Metroid Dread really brings out the best of the Metroid lineup, combining everything that made the original Metroid series so great with the right amount of difficulty where I was genuinely terrified for my life. It was also one of the earliest game franchises I actually started streaming, so I have to give Metroid a lot of respect. And don't worry, I will try to figure out how to get the Metroid Prime trilogy to work so I can play Metroid Prime 4. As divisive as that franchise sounds. So what if I told you there was a collaboration between Arc System and WayForward to make a Nintendo Switch exclusive game that was genuinely awesome? And the craziest part is, it's a spin-off. If you don't know what I'm talking about River City Girls, a spin-off that's based off the River City series, which is kind of the face of Arc System. A lot of people like to think Blaze Blue or even Guilty Gear, considering how well Arc System is making a great visual eye candy of fighting games. But one of their original titles, and what they're best known for, was the River City games. And River City Girls is actually more about the female leads trying to save the main leads of River City, Kunio and Ricky. It's got great voice acting, great pixel art, great music, and it's just all around a good time. Unfortunately, I have yet to play River City Girls 2, but hopefully I'll get there eventually. You know, after many years of Kirby being a 2D side-scroller, it's hard to believe that now of all times, they finally decided to move into 3D. And of course, you know I've got to be talking about Kirby and the Forgotten Land. For his first mainline 3D platformer, Kirby really hit it out of the park, not just completely changing the game, but changing all the mechanics of his copy abilities, such as copy abilities now having upgrades, brand new enemies, and of course, mouthful mode, which is honestly really funny to me. And yeah, there is a Switch 2 version. If you have not yet played the game and you want to get a Switch 2 edition, it might be worth it. Though Tears of the Kingdom made my honorable mentions, that doesn't mean there isn't a Zelda game on here, so the next best choice was Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Now I know I could have put both of them on this best of list, considering this is technically a spin-off, but I feel like this game needs a lot of love, as I know some people weren't happy with the fact that this is technically its own side story when the game advertised itself as a official prequel to the original Breath of the Wild. But its roster of characters, action set pieces, and more importantly, how it handles its upgrade utility makes, in my personal opinion, the best Warrior games out there, even though I've only played 3. We're now officially in the top 5. It wouldn't be a best of Nintendo's legacy if I didn't introduce one specific franchise that needed a lot of love, and Nintendo Switch gave it that much by putting the entire mainline franchise on the Switch. And considering they're all basically enhanced ports, you obviously knew the winner had to be Pikmin 4. I love navigating the world, I love the new Pikmin types, and of course I love Ochi. I will generally admit though, the night expeditions aren't really all that in my honest opinion, but that's more of a nitpick than a complaint, as I am really happy that we got underground expeditions yet again, and as someone who really did enjoy Pikmin 2, and really enjoy the idea that Pikmin 4 is basically a sequel to Pikmin 2, like how Pikmin 3 is a sequel to Pikmin 1. At least that's how my perspective sees it. The Italian Plumber did not make number 1, but he's still in my top 4. Super Mario Odyssey is without a doubt one of the best 3D Mario platformers out there. Though I will say Mario Galaxy is my preferred favorite, Mario Odyssey is still a pretty close second when it comes to exploration in a 3D area. Combining everything that made 3D Mario so iconic and making Mario's adventure go above and beyond. And the fact that the team that made Mario Odyssey made Donkey Kong Bonanza, dude, it's absolute gaming. These last 3 games I generally think are my all-time favorites on the Nintendo Switch. And the craziest part is, the next one is not even a Nintendo game. I know a lot of people will get mad at me for choosing this game, but I generally think Live Alive is one of the best RPGs I have ever played. But AngelStar, you might be asking, isn't Live Alive an enhanced remake of an original title for the SNES made by Square Enix? Well, yes, but this is actually one of those exceptions I'm actually going to be talking about. Live Alive never officially released in the US. Most people who actually got to experience the game got to through fan translations. This was the first official time Live Alive would actually get a US release. Thus, does not count as a remake in my personal opinion. But that doesn't really matter because the game is phenomenal, with 8 different unique story elements, a really entertaining grid structure, and a phenomenal story which made me think as one of the best RPGs of all time. You know how iconic Live Alive is? This was the game that inspired Undertale. Though I think Live Alive is the best RPG, there is another franchise I actually think deserves the number 2 spot because of how much I love it, and that is Xenoblade Chronicles. But the hardest part for me was choosing which version of Xenoblade Chronicles to put on my number 2 spot. I couldn't choose Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition because it's a enhanced remake, and I didn't know whether or not to choose Xenoblade Chronicles 2 or Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I know 2 is a very divisive choice, I really love Xenoblade 2, but I wanted to choose a game that best represented the Xenoblade Chronicles series as a whole, so I decided to go with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, as it literally combines everything that made Xenoblade Chronicles 1 and 2, without going to spoiler territory why, and completely concludes the original story that goes with the world of Xenoblade Chronicles. Seriously, Monolith Soft, your dedication and hard work to making this franchise work, and Nintendo making sure this franchise stayed alive, is nothing more than praiseworthy. So much so that I actually think Xenoblade Chronicles is in like the Big 10 of Nintendo's biggest franchises, on par with Fire Emblem, Kirby, and even Pikmin. Even if you might not love the series, I still love the Xenoblade Chronicles series, and 3 is a great swan song to the original trilogy. And now for my number 1 choice. Well, a lot of the games were not that obvious. This one pretty much is. I mean, how could I not put Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as my number 1 all-time favorite Nintendo Switch game? The fact that Sakurai managed to make this game immediately after finishing Smash for Wii U and 3DS's DLC, and making what is basically his magnum opus of Super Smash Bros. I don't think everything about it's perfect, but you cannot deny the impact and legacy this title will leave behind as being one of the biggest crossovers in video game history, featuring a massive amount of characters we have wanted for years in our speculative rosters. Whether it be Simon Belmont, the hero, Steve, representatives from Tekken, and my most requested choices myself, King K. Rool, Banjo-Kazooie, and Sora. I love this series so much, I have a dedicated side series on my channel on Smash moveset speculation. That's how much I love Smash Brothers. I doubt we're going to get another Smash Bros. Like Ultimate, and I know some people will be nitpicky about it later on in life, whether it be World of Light, competitive side of everything, or who does and doesn't deserve a spot on the roster. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate will always be my number 1 favorite Nintendo Switch game. Of course, these are my personal opinions, and it was actually incredibly hard to choose a lot of them besides my number 1. Hence why I had to do 10 honorable mentions. But what were your favorite Nintendo Switch games? I'd love to know, so let me know in the comments below. And I'm really excited to see what the Nintendo Switch 2 has to offer. I know there are going to be other Nintendo Switch titles coming out later this year, including Tamagotchi Life and Rhythm Heaven, but I have a feeling those games will also get Nintendo Switch 2 variants. But don't forget, all these games are backwards compatible with the Nintendo Switch. Either way, these games are still great, and I think if you don't have a Nintendo Switch now, you should get a Switch too. The games run incredibly better, Pokemon especially. A lot of the newer games are actually pretty fun and exciting, and of course, when it comes to Nintendo games, they're always fun. But that's just my personal opinion. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this is AngelStar, signing out from Star Jettison.